VpK Part 2. Let's get started with viewing a running instance of IBM Cloud Private. You would open the navigation bar on the left-hand side, scroll down to the cluster, and then within cluster, select cluster info. And what you will do here, once selected, you provide the parameters. Provide the IP address for the instance that I want to query. The IP address for that I'll enter. The port defaults to that. Cluster name defaults to this. You can actually filter at a namespace. I want all namespaces. The user ID needed to authenticate, admin, and the password for this user. Now, once I press the validate load key, I want to go ahead and bring forward the console here from the background, because you'll see that there's a lot of activity going on. So let me press this validate load key. And within the UI, there's this spinning icon showing you that things are going on. But all of these scrolling lines are different instances of the kube control being invoked with different parameters to retrieve all the different types of data. And once it's completed, provides you the statistics from the retrieval of the information. As you can see here, there were 2,149 different YAML files that were actually created from the information retrieved when the previous commands were executed. So let's go ahead and go back to the UI. When the validate load completes, you get the green check mark and a message cluster processed. Let's go ahead and close this. And let's go back to the search criteria. You'll see here that there are many namespaces that are associated with several different people that have access to this environment. But let's go ahead and select all namespaces because I want to do my initial queries there. But I want to go ahead and show you the many different types of resources that were available out there. Let's go ahead and select a stateful set again. And I want to clear zoo. I don't want to filter on zoo. And then just search. And before I hit the search button, let me quickly show you the directory that you see in the input directory down here. This is the directory that was created on the machine where the server component is running. So this application is actually running in my directory, that R1 directory that we created, the VpK, the home directory for VpK. And then when you query a running cluster, the results are placed in a cluster directory with the IP address of that running cluster. And these files, those 2,000 plus files, will be available again in the future. If you remember this directory, you can simply paste this into the startup, or you can select it from the UI. Let me go back to this search. So let's go ahead and press the search key, and you can see that there are multiple stateful sets. Go ahead and select the vulnerability advisor related stateful sets. View multiple. As we scroll down, you'll see there's the first one. And note that this container, or this stateful set, has multiple containers. You have the long running container and two init containers that are actually being launched. I want to go ahead and take this time to also help you understand the information displayed in a container. The white circles with a number displayed within the container are volume mount definitions. These volume mount definitions need to refer to an external mount point. The number 1 volume mount here is linked to the volume claim template for number 1. The number 2 volume mount is linked to the number 2 volume definition, which then goes to a config map. So if we go ahead and select on volume mount 2, that information will be highlighted. And here's the volume definition that has that information in there. And within the volume mount for the container, we have that also. Let's scroll on down to some of the other containers. See here, there's one volume mount associated with the claim template. And within this one, there's also one volume mount. But VpK provides you this ability to visually see what has been defined within these configuration files. Returning to the search, I want to demonstrate the namespace filtering. So select this, and let me select the namespace here. Let's select this one here. And I'd like to go ahead and search for all types within this, or all kinds, and search. And we can see now that the information has been filtered by namespace. There are a lot of different resource kinds that are defined out here within that namespace. And let's go ahead and select a search filter that'll help narrow this down. So I want to look for anything that has chart in the name. You can see that it's a little bit smaller list, but still a pretty comprehensive list. Well, I might want to go ahead and change this to probe chart. Now we've got a little smaller list. Again, you can use the filter criteria here as the pop-up is showing you. You can leave this value blank to find all types, or you can go ahead and define a value here and search across that. So let's go ahead and go to the navigation. There were several items there within the navigation slide out. Okay, you'll notice that there's documentation information. There's an about. Let's go ahead and select the about. You'll see that the application comprised of multiple technologies and what version the application is. Close that. The installation and usage both will open another tab, and that tab will take you to a GitHub repository. This is the same GitHub repository that we cloned previously. Now all of this information and a significant amount of instructions on how to use the system are available within the GitHub repository. So start parameters, you can see there's quite a bit of information, home screen. So the documentation, installation, and usage will take you to that GitHub repository. Directory, change directory allows for the changing of the current directory. Now, when I started the system originally, I had entered a /cluster when I restarted the VpK application after that initial start. What I'm going to do, since we've changed and created a directory structure that had all of the resources running within a IBM Cloud private instance, I want to go back to this directory. And I simply enter that directory, /cluster, and this is a directory in the root, /cluster. So if it's in your user directory, you might have to precede it with /user, however you've defined it. It's processing, and again, it's completed. Now if we look over here in the console output, you'll see that there's significantly fewer files listed this time as compared to when we parsed the information from the running instance of IBM Cloud Private. Let's go ahead and close this, go back and select the namespaces, and you can see that it's gone back to that short list of namespaces. Again, the input directory is now /cluster. Back to the navigation. If you wanted to, if you have configuration files that are scattered all over your machine and you want to drag them into a directory, you can define a target directory. Then you can define files that you want to drag into that directory, and then those files can be processed. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but it's information on how to do that in much more detail is provided at the GitHub documentation. You can also look at statistics. These are the statistics that we viewed from the console, but those statistics can be shown to you here within the application. You don't have to have the console open to see the statistics all the time. And then cluster information is the way that we defined how to access the cluster. And then the logs. We've been going over here and looking at the logs in the terminal session that I had open, but you can also view the logs within the application by clicking the View Logs. If you want to, you can clear the logs as well. Now, colors, what is shown here is a palette of all the different types of resources or kinds, the default background color, the name of the resource type, an abbreviated short name. So if you'll notice here for this third box, certificate signing request, uses the hex color 003399, and when the block is shown within the rendering, it shows the abbreviation cert sign rec. Now these are the default colors. If you don't want these default colors or you find them difficult to read, you can actually edit a configuration file. And I'll jump over here to the instructions, scroll down to that area. To modify it, you simply edit the colors.json file, which is in the root of the VpK directory, and you'll see that this is a JSON file. Each resource type is identified. They have 3 parameters: background color, text color, and title. And if you want to change the background color, simply enter the hex value without the pound sign. And if you want to change the text color, the FFFFFF is white. And if you put 000000, as shown down here, that would be black. And here's an example of a short title, the cert sign request. Simply edit that file, restart the server, and those changes will be picked up. I want to thank you for letting me demonstrate VpK. I hope you find value in it, and please send feedback if you have any comments or suggestions with regard to VpK.